Hi everyone! So today's Facebook Live is again about developing a British accent. Today I'm focusing a little bit more on this kind of myth that comes with developing a British accent. So some people think that it's impossible, which isn't true. Other people believe that actually their accent is mostly made up of the vowel sounds, because obviously the consonants aren't very strong. You get things like p, t, k. So how can that really change your accent? You can either pronounce them or not. But actually what's interesting here is even though the vowels really do stand out and obviously make a lot more of an impact, the consonants can really massively affect the vowel sounds. So for instance, if I say a word like take it here. Oh, everyone's watching, great. Hi Upman, hello. So if I say, for instance, a phrase like take it now, I obviously start with the T here, and then we've got a K, which comes from the back, and these are both aspirated sounds, t, k. So they're quite breathy. They're known as voiceless sounds because the air passes out of the mouth. And then obviously you've got the A in take as well. So you've got a T and a K and an A. So we have two consonants and one vowel. And this is often the case. We have more consonants than vowels quite a lot of the time. And these consonants make an impact on the vowel because the A needs to resonate back here. So we're stifling a smile. Hi, Armin. And we do it if we were to chant an A, for instance. Hey. It resonates back here. Yet we have the t, t, t here and the k, which is bringing the air forwards. So we have two reasons to focus on the mouth. The air passing through the mouth with the t and again with the k. And only one reason to focus on the back here, A. Add to that the fact that we begin and end the word with a consonant, t, k. We end up often resonating the vowel too much in the mouth. And this is true of both regional accents and also people who have a foreign accent. At the moment I seem to be working with a lot of regional accents for whatever reason. And I'm working with someone from Stoke-on-Trent, someone from Birmingham, who really just wants to neutralise their accent. And what's interesting here is actually the difference isn't that great. There's not that big a difference between someone who has a regional accent and someone who has a foreign accent who wants to speak with a standard British accent. Because often the case is that with both, the resonance is just too much in the mouth and there's too much focus on the consonants. Particularly, for instance, for someone who comes from India. Their accents are very consonant heavy. And the way they're doing this, their secret, is that they're tensing the tip of the tongue. So we get something like this, because they're just tensing the tip of the tongue against the tooth ridge, this little bar behind the front teeth. So this is why consonants play such a big part when we're speaking, because they bring everything into the mouth. And the voice, when speaking with a British accent, a standard British accent, should really be in the cavities in the head, the back of the mouth, the throat, the chest. We're really using our whole instrument, so to speak. Whereas if you're just resonating in your mouth, that space isn't that big. So it can really compromise on clarity. It can sound a little bit kind of fluffy. So really we're going to have a stronger, louder, clearer voice when we use the whole instrument. And this is why I'm often comparing it to singing, because you've probably noticed that when someone's singing, their voice tends to resonate really, really fully back here. And there is very little accent going on. So we don't hear a foreign accent or a regional accent. We just hear this beautiful, full musical voice. And this is really what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm really helping people to make their voices sound nicer, stronger, clearer, and just a little bit more standard. Okay, so how do we do this? So we're moving away from the consonants, that's one thing. But I don't know about you, but often when I'm trying not to do something, I end up doing it more. So focusing on not pronouncing your consonants too strongly isn't really the solution. What you need to be doing is focusing more on these spaces at the back, okay? So the vowel sounds. So in a sense, people are correct when they say the problem is my vowel sounds, because of course when you focus on them more, quite naturally, your consonants will be softer and the resonance will improve. So here are a few exercises. I'm going to start with a few really nice chanting exercises just to warm up my own voice as well, because I haven't had a lesson yet today, all my clients this afternoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some chanting. So I'm just going to take you through a few nice ones so you can join me if you like. So I'm going to start with 4 sounds: E, A, O and R. I'm just going to chant them one by one and then we'll do them all together. So the sound is resonating quite high. It's resonating in the back of the mouth, but also slightly around the soft palate area. And if we yawn, we feel this soft palate lifting. So you can do a yawn and it lifts slightly. Another way to really work the soft palate is to drink through a straw. And when you're sucking through a straw, you naturally just lift the soft palate area. So if you're someone who has a regional accent, you'll probably find that you're not quite using that area as much as I am. So for instance, my clients from Stoke-on-Trent and Birmingham at the moment, their voices are resonating a little bit too much in the mouth and they just need to lift up here a little bit, and then the voice travels up here and they get a much fuller, longer, clearer E or A. And we're doing the E right now. So we can also do a stretch to lift the soft palate. E, E, E. And sometimes with the shorter E at the end of words like happy, it ends up being more happy rather than happy. And that's across the board for people who have, say, a foreign accent or a regional accent. Happens quite often. And the effect is just a little bit different, isn't it? When I say happy, happy, it's a bit smoother and softer at the end, whereas happy sounds like it's kind of cutting off before the end. And that's really another thing about having a standard British accent. Your words are a lot more smoother. A transition between the words are a lot smoother as well. So you can just enlarge this area at the back of the mouth and when you start speaking, and just keep it expanded. And that's another way to really get this kind of smooth flow between words. So that's consonants and vowels. Hard to separate them really. So one of the other reasons that we focus a lot on consonants rather than vowels when speaking, kind of inadvertently, not meaning to, is to do with the mouth positioning, because obviously in the word happy, p, 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 you've got h and p, and there's quite a lot going on there, particularly with the p, p, p. Our focus comes to here, and then often the vowel kind of gets stuck there. So that's why the chanting of the sounds is really helpful, because it helps to remind you that the sound needs to be at the back and in this area around here, even in the throat slightly as well, although be careful not to send the sound directly over the vocal cords, because that can give you a sore throat. And that's another lesson. So we'll come back to the chanting. So we've done E, we'll do A now. It doesn't have to sound like singing. I mean, my voice isn't incredible, so it just has to, resonate fully. That's the important thing. And with the A, it's kind of like the E, where again we're lifting the soft palate. E, A. And let me tell you why. Because when the tongue comes up, the mid to back of the tongue for the E and the A sound, there's not much space left in the mouth for the vowel to resonate. So you really have to lift the soft palate to give it more space, because that's what vowel sounds need. It's space, lots of space for them to be strong and clear. Otherwise we end up with this E that I mentioned, E, 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 or in the mouth, E, E. It's just not that clear. So again, we're using this area, we're lifting. So as I mentioned earlier, you can drink through a straw if you find that your sounds aren't quite resonating high enough, or you can do a stretch, a yawn, just to remind you of the existence of this space. And you'll find that when you practice these kind of exercises regularly, you'll be more aware of the existence of this space, and therefore the sound will just quite naturally gravitate there. So it's not really about having to think about the pronunciation of every single word or sound. Once you do these exercises regularly, say 2-3 times a day, it doesn't take very long, you'll just start to be more aware of this space that you perhaps weren't using before, and it'll be easier to get the sound to travel there naturally. So that's E and A. Other sounds which are really good for chanting are O and R, so you can chant those as well. And again, I'm really focusing on this space at the back of the mouth. So there's a lot of expansion going on. And if you find that your O comes too much into your mouth, that's not unusual, because the positioning for the O sound has the tip of the tongue down below the inside of the bottom teeth. O, O. And so some people tend to focus on the front and they get more O, 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 rather than O, O, back here. And so one of the things you can do is just pull your cheeks in slightly. So you should just feel the inside of your cheeks against the bottom teeth and the jaw. Oh, oh. But still, the voice can still resonate here. So the best thing to do really, again, is to lift the soft palate. So as I mentioned earlier, you can do that through stretching and yawning, or you can work the muscles by drinking through a straw. So we'll do a stretch. And this is really typical. So when we have long vowels like O, R, we create more space by lifting and expanding the back of the mouth. Hi, Bianca. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to say hi a second ago. It's in the middle of chanting. So if we come back to the O and you have another go, this time becoming a bit more aware of the space at the back of the mouth. So lifting the soft palate and expanding back here. You might notice that the tip of the tongue is down, but your awareness should be much more on these cavities at the back of the mouth. Obviously this is chanting and it's not the same as speaking, but like I said earlier, it really helps you to expand your awareness. And once you're aware of this space, the sound will start to naturally resonate more fully back there rather than in the mouth. And this is really what today's session is about. It's about shifting awareness from the consonants onto the vowels. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes this is to do with mouth positioning. So for instance, with a pa, 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 or a ba, 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 or a ta, or a da, there's a lot happening at the front of the mouth, you know, with the lips or with the tongue on the tooth ridge, just below, behind the front teeth. And it can also be to do with the fact that some consonants are voiced and some consonants are unvoiced. So an example of a voiced consonant would be the b, 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 when it resonates in the throat and the air literally just passes over the vocal cords. And that can sometimes help for people to become more aware of this space and therefore use it more fully, whereas the p, p, p can sometimes bring the sounds forwards. So when you have an unvoiced or an aspirated consonant where the air passes out of the mouth, you want to be focusing on on bringing your cheeks in slightly here. So we can stifle a smile. This is a really good exercise to help you to really keep the sound at the back of the mouth and stopping all the air from coming forwards. It's a lot to do with air control. So when you control how much air comes forwards, you stop all the sound coming forwards and resonating just in the mouth, and you help it to resonate more fully at the back of the mouth and the throat, in what I call the cave area. So the reason I call it the cave is because when you expand it, that's kind of what you're doing. You're making a cave and deepening that cave. And I do this a lot. And it really helps to shift your focus there, to draw the sound back. So when you have an aspirated sound like a p, we pull in the cheeks, a bit like stifling a smile. So we're just holding a smile back and trying not to laugh. And that brings the corners back, the cheeks against the teeth. Another thing we can do with a P, with a P sound, is to lift the palate slightly. So then we bring the sound up, people, people, rather than people, people. So it can be a bit muffled, as I was saying earlier, because it's too breathy, too much air comes out. There are so many problems that occur because of this. So you might find if you've got a voice that's too consonant heavy, that your voice is a bit weaker because you run out of air. You might find that you don't manage to get to the end of a phrase or a sentence. You have to keep taking breaths. It can be a bit breathy, which can be annoying, can't it? And this is just one tiny solution that can solve this, just by pulling the muscles in. Great to see so many people watching, by the way. Hi Giuseppe, hi Michael. Haven't seen you before, so that's great. So we're pulling in the muscles here, stifling a smile, to weaken these aspirated sounds, okay? And also another great exercise if you want to become more aware of this lifting sensation is just to place your tongue in the middle of the palate. And also, like I mentioned before, you can deepen the back of the mouth like a cave. You can drink through a straw to work the soft palate as well, because we want to be lifting up. So let's go over a few more words containing the P consonant. So we've got people, people. And it's quite natural to lift the sound here because we've got the E that resonates high anyway, so we already need to lift the soft palate. What about a word like, in fact, paper, pope, we lift for all of those. Paparazzi, so the A tends to resonate further down and back here. We flatten the back of the tongue, paparazzi. But when we've got a P, we still want to lift slightly to reduce the P, so the P. Paparazzi, paparazzi, okay? So just do a stretch for me. Deepen the back of the mouth like a cave. Okay, paparazzi, paparazzi. People, people. So I'm pulling in and I'm lifting. And that's how I'm making my voice stronger. I'm stopping the breathiness that's associated with a consonant. And I'm creating more space to make sure that the vowel, say the E in people, isn't here. People, people. Can you imagine if your E resonated too much in your mouth and your P was too breathy? A word like people would be really impossible. And often people come to me for this word because there are other elements that are challenging there as well, like the L ending. We'll do that another time. So we were talking about voiced and unvoiced sounds, and actually you've got 7 pairs of consonants, and with these pairs there is one that's voiced and one that's voiceless. So you've got ch and j, church and judge. So ch 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 is the aspirated voiceless one, and j j j judge is the voiced one. Now, sometimes people have a problem with this consonant because ch, 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 it tends to resonate too much in the mouth, and also j, 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 purely because of the positioning. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to focus on in terms of the mouth. You've got the tongue that widens, j, 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 ch, ch, ch. So it widens, so you're actually kind of biting the edges of your tongue here. Ch, 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 j, j, j. And this really can bring the voice into the mouth, so you can get something like church, judge, and it can be too breathy and not sound great. And obviously we always want our words to be vowel focused, so that the sound is long, strong, full, so people are really able to hear what we're saying. So church, judge. So how do I take my focus away from the ch and the j? Well, I expand back here more. I just generally take my focus to the middle back area of the mouth here, at the very back. And one way of doing this, which is really straightforward and easy to do, and most of the time very effective, is to stifle a smile and hum. Obviously, this is a warm-up exercise, and you're not going to be doing this kind of all the time. Maybe a few times a day, that would be sufficient. But it should take your voice back into this area and make you aware of that space that you haven't been using, okay? So you can do it again now. So stifle a smile and hum. Church, church. And what we want to be doing here is taking away this added ch sound and adding to the strong vowel church, that should be clear. Should be very short and brief and just not too aspirated. We don't want too much air to come out of the mouth. Church, judge. Now, the reason why judge is often a bit easier than church, well, there are 2 reasons. The first is that j is a voiced sound. And when we have a voiced sound, j, 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 it's easier to take our focus away from the mouth area and into the throat, because there's a voiced element that the air passes over the vocal cords. Judge, judge. Whereas with church, church, it is a bit breathy, and that's fine. Okay, so coming back to what I was saying, there are 7 pairs, and you've got ch and j, t, d. So the first one, t, is the aspirated breathy one. D, d, d is voiced, where the air passes over the vocal cords. And then you've got th and v, v. So that th is the aspirated breathy one, and the v is the voiced one. And then you've got k, 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 and g, g, g. Now, even though these sounds don't occur at the front of the mouth, they're consonants that are produced at the back of the mouth by the mid to back of the tongue rising up and closing off the air passage, they can still be too strong. Now, I think it's just a general reflex to perhaps improve diction or to improve clarity. People feel like if their consonants are strong, their speech is strong. But it's really not the case. We want to be relaxing and expanding this area at the back for long, strong vowels. And with the k and the g, they can be quite challenging because they can stop the voice from resonating fully in the cave area I mentioned. So because the mid to back of the tongue comes up to block off the air passage, it's blocking off the space that we want to use for the vowel. And when the k and the g are too strong, often the voice just comes into the mouth afterwards. So again, it's another really great reason to be doing more warm-ups and more expansion. Okay, so more of a stretch. So then we've got, say, we look at these 2 words, these 2 sounds, k and g. We could say, for instance, kit, 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 and see if we can get the I to resonate higher here, and give, give, give. And you probably hear that the g, the sound is naturally a bit stronger there after the g. Give, give, because it's a bit fuller. Kit, kit is naturally a little bit softer, but we can still hear the vowel clearly there, and that's what we're looking for. So if we carry on with the pairs, we've also got p and b, p and b. And again, we're using the lips here, front of the mouth again. So these sounds can really bring the voice into the mouth. So there's 2 reasons here. So the p, it's aspirated, and we're bringing the lips together in the front of the mouth. So to soften this for the p, as I said earlier, you can pull the cheeks in here, you can lift up the palate, but you can also just soften that movement of bringing the lips together and just make it a bit softer, a bit more subtle. The same goes for the b, because it's voiced, so that could help, but it doesn't always. Sometimes just shifting the focus from here by making the movement softer helps people to get the vowels to resonate more fully at the back of the mouth here. So I hope everyone's following. I'm going through so much information. This is my challenge with Facebook Live. I feel like I'm talking. I don't get the kind of conversation and feedback, so I just keep going. So anyway, we've done p and b. The next ones, there are the th consonants, and you've actually got 2. So there's th, 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 as in words like thought, which is the aspirated one, the breath comes out of the mouth, and then the, which is the voiced one in words like the and these. And again, focus is here. So because the movement is here, tip of the tongue comes up. Some people then bring the whole word into their mouth. So thought, thought, thought becomes thought, thought, thought. And they just forget about really using all this space at the back. Thought, thought. And with words like the and these, it can be slightly easier because, again, you can really think about the voiced elements of the consonant sound there. We want to be doing everything we can, essentially, to shift focus from here to here. So obviously focusing on the vowel is one of the best things you can do, but you can also focus on the voiced element of the consonant. And as I'm just sharing with you now, we kind of got half of your consonants that are voiced and half that are aspirated or voiceless. So the last pair is the sh j. In fact, there are a couple more pairs, but we'll stop here. So we've got sh as in shoot, and then we've got j as in beige or pleasure. The reason they're considered a pair is because they take the same mouth positioning. And the reason they sound a little bit different is because the sh is aspirated or voiceless, so the air passes out of the mouth, and the j is voiced. Okay, so the air is passing over the vocal cords. And as I mentioned, sometimes people find the sh, shoot, shout, shine is a little bit more difficult to focus on the vowel, because it's all here, air coming out of the mouth, and we've got that sh. We're biting the sides of the tongue slightly. Sh, shoot, 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 sh, sh, and pleasure, pleasure. So you can hear it resonates further back here. Measure, treasure, beige for the j one. Yet the other one can still be paired up with a strong vowel in a word like shine, shut, shoot, if you can just focus on this space at the back. So very quick overview of voiced and unvoiced sounds. Perhaps I'll do a kind of whole Facebook Live just on that one day. But what I wanted to do today, really what my intention has been, is to show to you that actually consonants can have a big impact on vowels. And actually, even though most people think that their vowels are the problem, it is quite often not the case, and quite often they're just too focused on the front of the mouth. Their voices are just too consonant heavy. The movement is too strong, like I said, with the and the the p and the b. But equally, it could be the and the and also the g and the k. The movement can be too strong. One interesting thing about a consonant-heavy voice is that, like I said earlier, with regional accents, people often think that they need to pronounce their consonants, they need to pronounce the whole word in order to have good diction. People often talk about having good diction in things like performing arts and drama, speech and drama. But you can actually have diction that is too good, and you can end up sounding like a robot, so you have to be very careful there. And that's another thing that I've talked about recently. I did a Facebook Live a few weeks ago on the t, just purely on the t consonant, and when to pronounce it, when not to pronounce it, and how it's often overpronounced. People often think that we don't pronounce the t very much in England anymore, but we can also go the opposite direction and pronounce it when it's not supposed to be pronounced. So if you'd like to catch up on that, you'll find the last Facebook Live on my Facebook page. So look that one up if you're interested. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of what I've talked about today. So really the objective here has been to show to you that an accent is not just about the vowel sounds, but also about the consonants. And by reducing, softening your consonants, you can then give yourself the time, the space to focus more on the vowel. And I've given you a few warm-up exercises which will help you to do that. So lots of chanting and humming, and lots of deepening the back of the mouth like a cave will help you. Like I said, one of the best exercises for that is to stifle a smile and hum. Because you're doing two things here. You're reducing the consonant by pulling in the cheeks, and you're creating more space at the back of the mouth, which is really important. When you become more aware of this space, the sound will naturally travel there, and so you won't necessarily need to intellectualize everything. And I think this is often the challenge. If you look in a pronunciation textbook like Ship or Sheep, or Pronunciation in Use, the Cambridge book, you'll find the movements are very well detailed. So they'll say, okay, right, for the p, you have to bring the lips together and then you just release the air. But what they don't do is say that actually the vowel's really important too, and if you just focus on the p, then everything's going to resonate in the mouth and you're not going to have a very good British accent. So really you can't look at the individual sounds on their own. Everything has to be looked at in a much more global perspective, and this is why we've covered so much today. And when I'm teaching people, I have a very structured method because it's so important to cover everything. Not too much at the beginning, but then towards the middle and the end, you have to have this global picture. So you have to do a kind of marathon of going through everything in order to suddenly see these patterns between things. And as I mentioned earlier, there are certain sounds where you need to lift the soft palate. And when you do, everything improves. And obviously you need to reduce the consonants, strengthen the vowels. And everyone has their individual challenges. So some people, they don't use these muscles here enough, and then it sounds quite sloppy. This is quite prevalent in places like Essex and, the estuary accent, when everything's a bit like this, so they're just not using the muscles here at all, and it's really in the mouth, okay? And the only difference between my voice then and the voice I just put on is that I relaxed here. That's all I did. So often it's just one thing that makes a massive difference and has a big impact on clarity. So doing these exercises I mentioned daily can start to help you to develop muscles that you perhaps don't use very much and therefore can't use, because when you don't use something it becomes really difficult then to use it all the time. Hi Essie, it's so great to see you. So I'm just kind of coming to an end now. I've just been summarizing what I've been doing and talking about how important it is to develop these muscles in the mouth. So when we speak English with a really nice British accent, that's what we're doing. We're really balancing where the sound resonates by using the muscles and creating lots of space. Okay, so when we pull the muscles in here, we support the voice. And that's the main difference between my voice now and the little impression I did just then of a kind of estuary or an Essex accent, where I just kind of went like this, because I'm just pulling in a little bit and I'm adding to the clarity. And some people, that's all they want. They don't necessarily want to have the perfect British accent, but they want people to be able to understand them and hear them, okay? And so that's one of the best things to do. Like I said, Stifle, Smile and Hum is great. Also, drinking through a straw is a really good exercise to strengthen the soft palate and to kind of use that muscle a bit more. Chanting is really good because you're then getting used to resonating your voice in this area. And one of the main things I teach is really resonance. So often when someone focuses too much on the front of the mouth, you'll hear a sound and you'll think that consonant's fine. It's not the consonant, it's the vowel. But then someone trained like me will think, actually, it's kind of neither of them. It's about focus. So if we look at the word wet, for instance, wet, if there's too much focus on the wet, the voice comes into the mouth. And so kind of neither are correct. The W looks correct from the face of it. The movement's correct. But the kind of the secret behind everything and the solution to having a clearer voice is to focus more on the vowel. And then, both sounds go from being correct but it not sounding great to perfect. By creating this space here, then we get a sound that's really nice and full, wet, rather than wet, where I'm just focusing on the w and the t. And the e is just kind of having to fit in between, rather than, taking its nice full space back here, wet. Remember when I first started teaching and I used all the principles that I read about in books like Ship and Sheep and Pronunciation and Use. I just, I couldn't get past this W. I thought, what's wrong with it? It looks good. Everything's good about this speech. And then I discovered resonance and I realized this is the key really to having amazing, beautiful speech. It's just about getting the voice to resonate in this space, which is very British, and away from the mouth, the front of the mouth. And by using all of your physiology, all of your instruments, you can have a really beautiful voice. So it's not just about reducing an accent, it's about improving vocal clarity, vocal tone, and just the quality of your voice. Some people come to me and say, I just don't like my voice. It's just really nasal, or it's, I almost lose my voice all the time because it perhaps resonates a bit too much in the throat. So it's about balancing everything and, practicing all the right kind of exercises to start to help you to use your voice in the correct way. So I think this is kind of coming to a nice natural close now. I've covered a lot of consonants today and given a really nice overview of what creates an accent and how you can soften yours and make your voice much stronger and clearer. Does anyone have any questions? Are there any questions from anyone about things, perhaps kind of challenges that you're experiencing now? I've met some of you, and some of you are not English and have really nice voices when you're speaking English, like Essie, you've got a lovely voice. I wonder what happens when people move back to their own country. Do they feel that their own accent, if they're speaking another language all the time, do they feel that the voice kind of resonates differently? Is that a challenge for anyone? Because I know that I have some clients who don't live in England and live, for instance, in Spain or India, and we work through everything, we do the course, and they're doing amazingly, and then they come back to me and they say, my accent's coming back. And it's just because they're just not using their English enough. And I think that's really key as well. You have to practice. And if you're not practicing by speaking English all the time, then you lose the muscle ability. You lose that ability, that capacity to resonate the voice correctly. So that's a really interesting point, I think. Okay, so I think that's it. No questions then. So if you do feel you have a question, but perhaps you're not comfortable to ask me now, then you can just private message me, or you can just comment in the comments here. But afterwards, if you think of something that you'd like help with, and perhaps I can send you some video links. I've also got a really good digital course that goes through all of the 44 sounds in the International Phonetic Index, whilst also working on resonance, which is really key, as I mentioned. So that's another great option as well. I'll just post a link to that at the end so you can have a little look at that. It's available on my website, and you can see the prices and everything when you go there. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. It's been a pleasure. Perhaps we'll interact a bit more after the session if you want to private message me. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.